As I move forward with my new Ontario Northland Railway layout, I look back and reflect once in a while, and I look at things and think, is this really going to work? So that's what this video is about. I've made some revisions to the track plan, and I'll show you where. And I guess the message here is don't be afraid to make changes to your train layout, especially at the beginning when it's so easy to do so. But really think about what you want to do with your train layout. I like operations and I want the layout to operate in a functional way. And the track plan has to reflect that. So let's get started. So let's start with the previous track design. I'll get to the video in a minute. But first, if you look at the top of the diagram, the top sort of left area, you'll see that there's 3 tracks going around the corner. Going over the drop section, there's a bunch of crossover switches, and then into the yard, there's a ton of switches at the end of the yard and the front of the yard. So I started reflecting, thinking, do I need all these switches, and what is the function of the yard going to be? So I'll get back to this diagram in a minute, but let's go to the video. So I'm looking at the video. First, I'm looking at the switches at the end of the layout, questioning the switches and the crossovers at the drop section. And overall, these 3 tracks. Do I need 3 tracks? Do I need all the switches? What's the function of the layout to be? So back to the diagram. So first off, I have to explain the layout a little bit. So basically, my plan was to have a switch lead at the bottom. That's the bottom of the 3 tracks. And then basically almost like 2 main lines coming into North Bay. Now the top one and the bottom one to a point are both basically going into what is going to be staging, which is connections to CN and CP. The bottom track, which is actually the switch lead, leads into the actual Ontario Northland yard, and then there's engine tracks at the bottom left. So looking at this, if those are staging tracks at the top, then why do I have all these crossover tracks up there? I don't need those because those trains are going to be heading off to wherever, CN and CP, other parts of North Bay. It's staging. It can be stub-ended. The other thing is the crossover doesn't work here either. Once I have 2 tracks in here, I probably want a single crossover coming from the main line over to the switch lead so that all freight trains can come into the ONR yard without backing up. Okay, so here's my revised diagram. Now, keep in mind, I've only revised basically the North Bay area for now. I may do revisions in other places later, but that's where I'm at. So you can see, and I'll go through it in the video in more clarity. You can see now I've got 2 tracks instead of 3. I've got a nice crossover from the main to the switch lead. So that gives all freights access into the Ontario Northland yard, basically Ontario Northland freights. And then the staging is stub-ended because it really is a separate entity from the ONR yard. And I may even put a divider in there to partly hide it as it's semi-visual staging. So let's have a look at the video. So as you can see, is with the pointer here, go over to the right. So yeah, the switches are gone. Strictly stub-ended staging now. And you can see that the rest of the yard, I have a normal ladder track, engine terminal at the bottom there for Ontario Northland, and there's a simple 2-track with the crossover. And looking at the layout, you can see I have some sections of track. There's the ladder kind of laid out, and I'm working on paper and drawing it out as I'm going along. There's the station, and that's about where it's going to be at the end of the day. So basically you get an idea of the layout there. And that, for a future video, is going to be where the drop section is. So in summing it all up, don't be hesitant to review your track plan. You can always change it once the layout's built, but it is easier to do it now. So if you have any misgivings, play around with it. And if you have some software where you can actually run trains, you might want to try that as well. Just see if it functions well. I've done that in the past as well, and this software will do that as well. So you can take a look at it. And what happened in the end for me is I've made what I think is a better functioning layout with less track and less switches, which at the end of the day is actually a bit of a cost savings for me without any negative aspect with regards to my layout and how I'm going to run the layout. So I hope there's something you can take away from this video and maybe apply it to your own layout design or current layout and go from there. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so.